Entering back into the festival world with this film, it's just been like nothing I've made before. Being strongly considered for Best Animated Film. Honestly, even to that moment, I still was like, I'm not going to win.
Luke Angus!
What is going on? I'm in Tokyo on the stage.
Absolute honour to stand here. This was a film I made by myself.
So now it's officially accepted with the Oscars and BAFTAs.
If I wanted to make an Oscar-worthy short film, what do I do?
Be clever with your filmmaking. Everything should be intentional. Characters and environments, if you can keep those down, you're just in a much better position. And don't think that that doesn't mean you can write a good story, because there's so much you can write. People often use the word cheating. This word that we're saying here, like, that's just how you do it. Even at the very top end, that's how filmmaking is done. There's an art form to knowing what you can kind of get away with that will not sacrifice any quality.
Luke, is that the legit award on the windowsill?
This is the one from Shorts. This is my most prized.
Amazing.
Definitely the most prestigious thing I've won. My previous short for the next little festival won best short for Alienated.
Brilliant, man. But yeah, Luke, welcome to the VFX Process.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's great to meet you as well.
Pleasure, man. Absolute pleasure. Can you just give us a brief introduction? Your name, who you are, what you do, and then we'll go on to talk about the award-winning Solstice.
Okay, thank you. My name is Luke. I'm a professional animator. Animated for 10 plus years in the industry now. Graduated from actually in Glasgow, Cali, and then went through a master's degree in Wales in more like filmmaking and storytelling animation. Then moved to New York. I worked Frame Store and Nickelodeon for a while. Then had a freelance stint and I worked in another studio over there for a while. Then moved back to Glasgow, where we live now, where I'm head of animation at a studio called Revenant in Glasgow. There's a really, really great sort of independent, really small studio there. Who actually no, medium sized now. We're growing. We're doing great. The talent of that team is crazy. Having done the sort of bigger studios and then some freelance stuff, I've found senior positions in medium studios is the sweet spot for me, where I can have a social life with all the team that are just amazing people that you get to work with, who are just crazy talented, but then actually having a voice and have my opinions heard, and I can fully direct things and move projects in certain directions with my thoughts, which is great because often you don't have that in the massive studios where you're just told what to animate.
But now that you've made a short that's kind of eligible for an Oscar, that's exciting.
It's crazy. Honestly, it's not out yet, but entering back into the festival world with this film, just the reception it's been getting at festivals and just showing it locally, it's just been like nothing I've made before.
Can you just talk about what this project is and kind of the birth of Solstice? Where did it all begin?
Solstice is an 11-minute short animated film set in the Arctic Circle. It follows a man named Tulok, who's recently just lost his partner, Yuka. And he is in this world of half the years in complete darkness in the Arctic Circle and half the years in daylight. That's not actually how the Arctic Circle works, by the way, but for the purpose of this film, we have a sort of half the year darkness, half the year light. I love that as a constraint on his world and how he navigates that. And the origin of this film was, I have the sort of one of those, maybe a lot of people have this, where it's just a notepad or notes in my phone of, sentence or two idea for short films. And I've got maybe 100 of these and they need so much development. But the nugget of the idea for this one was I had gone to the planetarium in Glasgow, I think over 10 years ago. And then a connection was made with like an igloo being like, oh, you could, and this is a spoiler for the film.
Well, we can edit around.
No, to keep it all, it doesn't matter. You could essentially recreate the night sky in an igloo, again, in a sort of kids animated film way, if you just poked holes in the igloo. And then you've got this world in the Arctic Circle where you don't get the stars for half the year. I'm like, that's perfect for an ending to a film. Like, how can I make that moment, like that ending of the film where that happens? Why is he doing that? Why is he poking holes in the igloo? And like, what caused that? And then what's the like most powerful way I can make that? So then, yeah, it all works back from that moment. And that's a really nice way to write as well, it's a good tactic. Like there's, I can't remember her name. She's brilliant. She did this rules of writing and rules of storytelling. And one of them is start with the end and write backwards from the ending. So like, know your ending. It's the first time I've really, really did that and not just pretended that I after the fact told people I did it. Like I really did have an ending. And I was like, that is so good. And it just meant that like I could just tailor this everything in the story fully towards serving that ending and like getting to that moment, rather than like I've got a cool opening thing and like where's this going and it sort of meanders into nothing, or it's like doesn't quite get to anything useful. And again, I've got so many of these ideas, and it's annoying how long this stuff takes to make. But I know whatever idea I choose from this list, it's going to be my life. Whatever I choose, it defines the next few years of my spare time. And so like it's quite overwhelming to be like, all right, am I doing this one? I guess I'm just going to do this one.
When you've got these ideas and you want to try and stitch them together or think of something else to add in there, to kind of flesh it out and work backwards, is it just yourself, or do you kind of vocalize it with, your partner or your friend, or where does that kind of circle sit with you?
No, my wife is a beast. She doesn't do animation. She doesn't do any of this. She is amazing at this. Some of it's just to get out of your head and talk it out loud.
Yeah.
But then often it's genuinely like, can you think of another way of doing this or that? And she's so good at just like giving me a few ideas. And she's definitely the closest person in the whole process who knows what I've been struggling with in the writing process and what I've been like battling with what I want to communicate, etc. So therefore, when I come to get like maybe think of some ideas, she knows the correct sort of like brief and what I'm avoiding and what I'm trying. And to catch someone else up on that who's on the outside and hasn't been through like all the sort of iterations I've done, and like it just takes a long time, so I don't often bring anyone in. It's just she's writing it's quite a personal process as well, so it's like you just want the most personal people in your life to be involved, if any. So definitely my wife is like almost a writing partner. She told me not to put her in the credits, but it was to the point where I wanted to put her in the credits because she said no, because I think she's just, but no, genuinely she's great.
And a lot of people say this, like having somebody with a different perspective, like not from that world, and they think completely different. So if you're frustrated walking around the house going, fucking hell, like that moment, like just tie up, like, and they're like, oh, what, the bit where this happens? And you're like, yeah. Oh, well, have you thought about this? And you're like,
and those little moments where it's something that you take for granted and you assume has to be in a certain form, and they come out with much more fresh eyes and call out certain things don't need to be there. So I mean, I do have some closer friends who I'm in contact with. Another friend of mine, Gary Ferrier, is a genius. Originally composer, but now full-on filmmaker, and has his own company, Analog Film.
oh, okay, great.
Really, really, really talented guy. I think there's also you don't want everyone's opinion. Like, it's not always right to just listen to every voice. It just you get some washed out and nothing ends up with anything. So it's like you kind of want to keep it to a tight knit group. I think when it's especially writing, too many voices just washes everything out, and you just have nothing.
Definitely. What does it take to kind of keep it to a level that's kind of either manageable or without things getting too crazy? What do you strip away from ideas to kind of go with, okay, that's stripped down enough now?
So I think my brain is naturally doing some filtering I'm not realizing, where like, let's say I think I'm already blocking out certain story ideas because like that would require a crowd simulation, or that would require whatever, like a full Houdini sim or something. I think I'm doing that without really realizing it. Like my films, it's a desolate, isolated. The Arctic Circle is just like a sheet of ice plane with an igloo in it and a guy. So like it's already the most like asset wise. You've got one environment, one character. Same with my previous film was about a little alien who travels faster than light to look back at where he came from to make himself not feel so alone. 2 planets, one character. I think the reason I keep landing on these themes in my films of like loneliness and isolation is because I'm one person making it, so I have limited scope. So therefore, I don't want to have like 10 people in my film, or like crowds and like going into a busy city and and like suddenly I'm like, I think it's me being realistic with capacity, and it filters into my writing without me even really realize I'm doing it. I'm like, I'm always setting it in like isolated places, and then you tap on themes that are so universal, just like loneliness and like loss and like these things that it's not like there's no stories in an environment with one guy and one set. You can write so many stories with that. Like, and I think, I mean, if there's any advice to anyone who's trying to make their own short film, it's just like characters and environments. Like if you can keep those down, you're just in a much better position. And don't think that doesn't mean you can write a good story, because there's so much you can write with those parameters.
Yeah, that's a really good bit of advice, actually. Just understanding, your not necessarily limitations, but your resources, and staying efficient with what you can produce. With this one then, Luke, I mean, naturally, visual styles, aesthetics, they can develop, can't they, a lot from what the initial idea was in that planetarium to the final film. Was that the case for Solstice? What was it like in your head from the start, and what's it like, when it ended up the final thing?
Yeah, I think I'm always trying to balance the style, because I really enjoy some element of photorealism, but I also really like this sort of playful cartoony styling. It's more accessible for a wider audience to have this like very colorful, playful things and characters with a nice appeal to them. And then you can sort of bring in some more adult themes and like tone I love that combination. When going through our early reference images of just like Inuit culture, and you've got these people who are just completely wrapped up in, you know, every inch of them is covered except from this little face poking out this hole. There's no dialogue in the film, so it's all storytelling through expressions and having this like focus on the face. It's all just this big fur thing, all is just target towards nothing but a little cartoony face that can express what it needs to. So I love that, and I thought that early on I was like, yeah, I'm going to just do this big crazy big silly hood, like really exaggerate that, and it lends itself so nicely to this like center frame like perfect ball with a little face in it. And
I love those. It adds so much to the, you know, the feel and the, you know, everything. For me, it's like I can imagine these figures, these characters as like puppets, there's a stop motion feel.
yeah,
There's
my friend made this. He had a little bit of printer stuff left for me, and he made this. So 3D print.
amazing.
It was the one and only Craig Simmers, who I think it's been mentioned on this podcast
Oh,
before.
Craig Simmers.
And you're trying to get him on. I know.
We
I told him
want
to
him
come on.
Oh, did you?
I'm working on it. Yeah, I'm working on it.
We're trying to get him on.
Yeah, honestly, you get him on and get any ounce of his process on this, you'll taking notes.
But yeah, you know, that stop motion feel to them, the puppets, like the way that the fur feels like it moves on like steps.
With my personal work, I really enjoy to just try out new software and try different processes and approaches. And yeah, one of the ones that was at the time was still continues to be trendy with this sort of on 2s or 3s and all this like Spider-Verse and etc. That whole thing. And that was in the conversation a lot 4 or 5 years ago. The main thing is you need your camera to be on one, essentially. So like any moving camera, has to be
like stop motion,
but it should be so it's smooth motion, because otherwise you get this jittery, horrible camera. This is like a win-win, because I like the look of the stop motion look where you've got your characters on 2s, but also you just rendering half the frames. I'm rendering at 12 frames a second, so I'm literally like halving the number of frames I need to render for an 11-minute film by myself. That's loads of hours saved. Like I don't want to say maybe hundreds of hours saved. It looks really nice. It's got a cool charm to it. Kind of makes them have this like tactile feel almost, that you could pick it up. It's like a little, like you're saying, a little stop motion look to it. It's not for every shot. There are some shots where if they're on 2s too much and the camera's moving, they lag behind, and you have to sort of manually move them with the camera, or you can move the global with the camera. Yeah, every shot has got its own challenges, and you can work around it and always get it there. But
and then you combine it with that like handheld, like realistic feel. For me, it felt like it's put me into that like, you know, on set of a stop motion film, but you with like a handheld camera.
Nice. That's great to hear. Because I wonder if that is what I'm touching. When I'm saying like I like realism with a sort of stylized look, I suppose what you're describing there, I'm describing there, is stop motion. Because stop motion is, you know, whether it's a little cartoony little set, it's real and you're taking a photograph of it. But you've got characters who are more sort of cartoony little characters. So yeah, okay, that's actually me realizing it on the fly, that I'm like, there's like another element of like stop motioniness that's in there. Yeah.
And it's similar to what went through my head when I first saw the very first shot of Toy Story 4. You know, they did something with the cameras and like the way that the lenses react with the lights and the rain, and
they've nailed that look, because they've got the same thing where like the realism there, but then you've got, somehow they make it work where these really stylized cartoony toys living in this crazy photoreal world works. And it's just like, look at that. Like, it's just like them like flexing on like, look how far we've come since the last film.
Wild.
Yeah.
What's it like, you know, developing the idea, and, you know, you've maybe got some pencil sketches of these characters, and you start knocking them up in 3D and building them.
Yeah.
What's that journey like to this shot's ready to render?
Yeah, I've got some tweaks to a sort of traditional studio pipeline that I've felt are justified because I'm on my own working on this. So I think a lot of the studio pipe, a big part of it, the reason you're doing what you're doing is because you have this team. We all need to be on the same page with everything. We need to all have the same vision in an ideal world where we all know what we're working towards as a team. When you're by yourself, like, I've got it in my head. I know I'm working towards. I don't need to try and prove this to anyone else. I don't try and show it to anyone else. And I did this different from the last film, because I learned a lot from my film before this. I did storyboards for the whole thing for that, and then I found so much had changed by the end. Partly just because I'm not great at storyboarding. I'm that sort of scribble on a little pad sort of storyboarder. And so if you have a good storyboarder, invaluable, like, what a talent. It's incredible to have a good storyboarder. But if you're on your own, and if that's something you're not as gifted at, I've basically replaced that with it is kind of a beat sheet, but it's more of a like shot list in my head. So let's say the intro shot is like Inuit waking up and moves a hook one along on a nail board calendar and steps out the igloo. That's not what I'm describing. I would have to say, like, but what are the shots? How are you covering that action? if you can get any camera language in there, great, like, you know, wide angle establishing shot or like a mid shot, close up, Dutch, whatever you're doing, just like you're really trying to communicate a camera and a shot rather than what's happening in general. There's a difference with a beat sheet, I think. And the speed that you can do that, I can so quickly, and this film in particular has a lot of like chronology, sudden shifting, I'm jumping back in time and going back. And you can order those in lots of different ways. And when do they happen? Like, when do you cut back? When do you, all these things you take for granted when you're watching the film that had to be decisions that were made at some point. And so when you've got these little, essentially chunks of text, you can just shuffle them around and just like, oh, that maybe was here now. And this whole sequence can be chucked in here. I maybe will sometimes scribble a storyboard or two, which I think I did for some of this film, but I just found it's a lot more time to get anything worthwhile, because I'm much more interested in getting into 3D. If I get into 3D, now I've got lenses and I've got like, I really find the shot once I'm in 3D. Like I might have it in my head, but until I get into the space and I've got a camera on a character, like that's when I actually, well, this is the shot. This is cool here.
Especially when you've got it jotted down, like, I just want a close-up of the legs entering the frame,
Yes.
so you can explore it real quick, like, boom, 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 let's get still out. I can
Exactly.
maybe put that into a little edit or something.
I'm not very good at really getting out of my head what I'm seeing with a pen and paper. And so I'm like, no, I can get the idea. But again, that's just, I might as well write that down then. Why did I spend all this time with a rubbish drawing? My actual like specialty is animation. Like that's what I trained in and that's what I have a career in. But these films are definitely not a like showcase of animation. They're very basic. It's just characters walking, stepping around. There's some nice stuff in there, but it's not. If I wanted to show off my animation skills, I would do a big fight scene or some crazy big, you know, action Spider-Man thing or something. Like that's when you show off like, oh damn, that's good animation. So the animation is again by intention, just efficient, but also functional. Like it's just telling the story. I thought I had the film. I thought I had it all planned out and all, this is it. This is the story I'm telling. This is how I'm getting to that ending of the igloo. Long story short, I scrapped like minutes of animation. Like just because it's hard. You have to start working on this stuff. You have to just like, okay, I've got my story. Let's start blocking out the shots. Let's start animating. But then when a better idea comes, I couldn't live with myself if I finished the film with the worst idea, knowing there was a better one. So anyway, yeah, that was a bit of a setback in the process. And I'm in Maya. So Maya's where I am the majority of the time. I basically just block out all the animation. And as an animator, I call it previs, but when I'm doing previs, I'm kind of just animating. Like I just enjoy that process. My favorite part of the whole pipeline is animating. So I actually don't do that much of like a blocking pass. I just start animating each shot. They're all quite simple, so they don't take me that long anyway. So I just animate everything. And I did the whole film, cut that together with just Play Blast. A lot of time spent in Play Blasts before I do anything else. Once I've got everything blocked in, I tighten and tighten and tighten and tighten just before I go off and render anything, or before I go off and do any first stuff, whatever it was.
Which is essential though, and you don't want to get too caught up in
I know.
Like
You're excited
aesthetics.
to do the next stuff.
But you want to, yeah. Of course.
Yeah, exactly. I just like, no, I need to wait because if again, the next step is rendering and you need to be efficient there. Like if you're just rendering shots that you're never using and like they get cut in the edit, then waste time. So yeah, I'm in the edit for a long time. Temp tracks are in there, just trying to get rough feeling of what I'm going for. Then this process was exporting everything over to Houdini, basically, for sim and lighting and rendering. Everything from then on was Houdini to end of pipe.
Okay.
I didn't mean that at first. I was just going to go into Houdini to do the fur. And before that, I was planning on doing the fur just because I hadn't used Houdini. I literally never used Houdini before this project. I was going to do XGen, Maya, something. I don't know. I was like, maybe I can just do a quick thing. And I don't know if you used XGen. It's not good.
I have used it on one project that I always think of. That was a very painful one.
Yeah. Scarred you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I basically had to deep dive into hair systems in Houdini. And my plan was to export Alembics from Maya, get a hair system that I could just sort of plug in, it would work, and then bring everything back to Maya to render. But I really liked Houdini when I was in there. I was getting okay at it. And I thought, let me just try chucking some lights in here and setting up my cameras and it was just a joy to work with. So I was like, all right, the render process and render nodes of Houdini are so nice as well. Like much nicer than what Maya has.
I didn't even know Houdini could do that side of it. I thought it was literally just for effects. And it was only when I spoke to Christopher Rutledge, who's an animator on the show, and he's all Houdini, and the stuff that he made in it, I was like, I didn't even know that this was possible.
Yeah, I think Houdini is expanding in that like regard. Like I think they're dipping into like animation and rigging, and like I've been tempted to try in my next film. I've been considering what to use. I'm thinking about Unreal, and then I was also thinking about doing full Houdini with what you're saying, like animation and rigging. I see what people can do in it. I think Maya is still the animation king, but there's so many other things I can't do in it that I'm like, I'd love to just stay in one package the whole time. That's the dream. But like the things that offer that, I think, are maybe Unreal and maybe Houdini, but both have struggle in certain areas with the full hype. But
That's really cool. I mean, I'd love to look at more of Houdini stuff for finals.
people really made me fear Houdini, like it was this crazy learning curve, and it's definitely different to Maya and co, but it's so logical. It's so like, if you've got a logical brain, it just makes sense. It's like, it didn't take me too long to sort of figure out, oh, that's how this works. And then you can start to experiment and not just follow tutorials without really understanding what you're doing. You're actually figuring stuff out. Yeah. And so I got past that point and I've just enjoyed being in the software and just stayed there.
You know, do you ever complete shots early on, saying like year one? Do you ever revisit them 2 years later when tools have changed, like ideas have changed? Like, what's it like working on a project and juggling older renders with newer renders?
That's a great question. Yeah. It's so difficult because it is, if you get to the end of the project and you couldn't do the whole thing again better, then you're sort of saying like, I haven't learned anything, like, which is not a great sign. You kind of always want to be learning, but the danger of always learning is you can always go back and just do a nicer render of your first shot you did. The shot of him coming out the igloo, that was my vertical slice. That was my like, let me run this shot right through the full pipeline before I do a single other shot, just to test any cracks in the pipe, what's working, what's not working, and get the look at the visual style that I can aim for in the rest of the shots. The amount of versions I have of that shot that all have a different look, style, feel. The fur sim looks different. I did different pictures for that. I've got a version where I did it in XGen. I've got a version where I did it in Houdini, but different types. I've got different lighting. I've got like, I was not stuck on that shot. I just wasn't happy for so long. And then I finally got the look and feel I wanted in that shot. But it was definitely that time spent was worth it. But then also you have to be pretty sure that's your look, because like I'm about to commit this to hundreds of hours to the rest of the shots. I think I maybe was one iteration premature, that I did start to do the rest of the film, did the fur for however many, maybe like 20 shots or something. Then I found a little thing and I was like, I added some modifier or something in Houdini and I got a nicer looking fur. And I was like, okay. So I only did it once. I only went back once and redid just the fur. It was basically a nicer, quite slightly nicer groove. I didn't go back after that. After that, I said, but you're right. And that is such a thing, which is to keep going through your film and learning something. And there's some things you can learn. You're like, it won't make a big enough difference. I'll keep it for the next project. But there are some things you learn that are like, this would actually just be like such an elevated look just for such a small tweak. And it's just time again. So if you're willing to put in the time and you have patience to just like go back through and redo it, it's always worth it. It's always worth. When I look at my film now, I'm not looking at like an old fur sim I wish it changed. I'm looking at like the one I chose, the one I actually wanted. So that's nice to watch.
I guess that is quite important then to kind of define it, because it is tempting to just move on, isn't it? But if you can just choose something and go, right, this is the rule book, this is the, my art of the visual style of it. Like, this is very important stage.
There are, I think there's almost like certain moments in the pipeline that if you spend time in them, it's so beneficial. And there's certain things you can spend time on and you wouldn't see that much gain. Like what I was saying about staying in the edit with play blasts for as long as you can, as boring as that is, and it's tedious, just trimming handles and tightening things and playing it back. Is this flowing right? Is this cutting here okay? Blah, blah. But it's staying there save you hundreds of hours later. And same with something like doing a vertical slice right through your pipeline, get a look you want, rather than committing to something then realizing none of it works and you've done 20 shots.
Yeah, definitely. So important. So talking about the timeline, the 4-year time that you took to make it, you've got a life, you've got a wife, you've got dogs, you've got a whole life outside this independent project. What's it like juggling life and making a short film?
It definitely changed through the year depending on what sort of sprint I was doing. I tend to get much more locked in for the animation phase when I'm animating. I was up at like 5 a.m. until work, like at 9ish. And then after work, I'd just go back on and go from like, 7 till 9 or 10. Those were like shorter spells where I'm doing that crazy, just because I love it. That is my favorite part, is animating. So when I'm in that phase, it's much less of like never a struggle. I always enjoy it, but like it's much more of like an excitement to like get up and work. I literally wake up and like can't wait to go and do the next shot. And
I agree.
I love it. So it's never a chore. I really could say that confidently. It's never a chore. Whereas other things that require a lot more concentration, like whether I'm figuring something out with first sims and all that, it's not quite as relaxing a process. It's not quite as like, let me just go lock in for a few hours. But I also just in that sort of 4-year timeline, I took off like lots of time, like as in I didn't work on it for months. I trained for a marathon and that took up all my time. Like, you know, I don't know if you've done anything like that, but like the amount you have to run is ridiculous when you're training for that, and it just takes up all your free time.
I've got a 10K coming up. That's where I'm at in a minute.
No, I'm back to like 5Ks now, so I can't even do 5. And that was where all my energy had been going. It used to be animation, and now it was doing that. And then I also just took some time off for some little personal things happening. So it's definitely not this like every second of. I don't think people should have the idea that they have to be every second of their free time is working on something. You can if you want to. It's just if you have a longer project like this, like it's a long thing, 11-minute fully animated short film, you kind of need to somewhat pace yourself and be like, if I just commit to like, you know what, no rush. If you're not feeling it just now, or you've got other stuff on in your life, just like come back to it. There's always the fear in the back of my head of just like, am I ever going to finish this? Like that is a constant driver for me, is the fear of being someone who doesn't finish their work, which I've never been. I only start something I feel like I can finish that. I think I preach so much about how to make these things and clever ways of being efficient and how to blah, blah, and then if I become someone who just I've got all these empty half finished projects, then it's a bit hypocritical. So yeah, I do I do have that fear driving me the whole time. But yeah, like I said, I just love doing it. So it's never difficult. I think of it more like a hobby, just like a video games or something. It's just like after work, all I want to do is just go back on and do it. I don't know what gives me that.
I mean, because if it is that case where you just hate doing it, then you should reevaluate. Like, do I want to be doing this? But should I pivot and do something that I just do enjoy? Because at the end of the day, you're spending a lot of your own time, you know, blood, sweat, and tears at times. And if it's something that you don't enjoy, then
I think the big question is just knowing why you're doing it. Something I found is a commonality to people who don't finish things or get too overwhelmed with the pipeline is often someone really likes one or two parts of the pipeline. And so once that part of the pipeline's done, they're just like they fizzle out. They're like, oh, the animation's all done. So it's like, now I've just got to do this other stuff and get through it. And I think if you know why you're doing it, I think the best backbone to have for why you're doing it is like, you've got a story, you've got an idea that you want to tell. If your driver is like, tell a story, everything feeds into improving that aspect. Like you've got a story when you do the play blast, great. But like, I can make the story better if I add better animation, if I add sound, if I add better, render quality or first, like all of this is feeding into the story. And therefore it's just a constant driver. If I have this idea of a story I want to tell, then it makes every part of the pipeline like exciting and not just being focused on like, I'm excited for one part of the pipeline and then I'm bored after that.
Are there any other things that you notice that you feel like filmmakers shouldn't be doing when making shorts?
There's an art form to knowing what you can kind of get away with that will not sacrifice any quality. People often use the word cheating when they're talking about like animate the camera. They'll say, oh, I cheated this because look, if you look outside the camera, his legs aren't moving and I just animated the top half of his body because that's all you see. This word that we're saying here, like cheating, it's like, that's just how you do it. Even at the very top end, it's just like going to a set of a sitcom and be like, oh, look, they're cheating. There's only 3 walls and there's no ceiling and there's cameras. They're making it look like they're inside a room, but they're not. That's cheating. No, that's just how you make a sitcom. That's the thing. But people don't think of that as like, oh, that's clever. They cheated it. But for some reason in our industry, people so often use this term to cheat something. It just gives you this feeling like you're doing it wrong. And then when you go into the industry, you're going to have to do it all right. And you've been doing it wrong this whole time. It's like, no, when you get into the industry and you're going to be praised for doing that stuff. Like you're going to be like, genius, really clever way of doing that. You saved us time, you whatever. But I just so often hear that in so many different aspects of animation, that word being used as a negative. But it's like they're using it as like, oh, look how clever this was cheating it. I just don't like the word cheating in that context. I think it's just like, no, that's just how it is all done. Like there isn't. It would be so stupid if you did it any other way. Like that's how filmmaking is done. You just what's in camera. And anyway, that's I would say, don't think you're cheating.
Absolutely, man. That is so good point to raise, Luke, for sure, man. I know we've spoke about the fur, but did you have that skill set before this? And if you didn't, what's it like approaching it, thinking, can I really avoid it completely, or do I have to just ride it and learn it on the fly?
I'd never done for really. I'd done some hair basically, but there was definitely a point where I was going to see if I could just do a really stylized approach and do almost like sculpted, just like a spiky sculpt or something. And I tried that, but there was some early look dev on the character stuff, which the character looks horrendous. But I was trying to do just quick, really messy approach of what could this look like. I would have had to lean much more into the stylized look
Sure.
if I had gone that route where it's like it's sculpted like cartoony fur, almost like, you know, anime fur hair kind of thing with like big exaggerated shapes. I think also saw loads of tests on like Unreal's really good nowadays with some of the first puppet stuff you maybe seen, like hand puppets that have like live fur, and I was like, I know it's completely doable. It's not a tall order. It's the most basic. It's essentially a big donut on his head, and you just cover it in fur and then sim it, and it's. So I knew I wasn't going down this crazy complicated rabbit hole of complex hair systems. It was going to be basic. I just had to find the right tool. So yeah, it definitely was an early consideration, but I knew it would also define the character in a big way, so I had to do it properly. Yeah.
Are there any like limitations as a solo filmmaker that kind of prevent you from maybe making something that you truly want in your head? Like, has there been any cases of that?
There's always going to be limitations, but I think so much of that is driven the storytelling I do. It's just like, it is like fed into it. I think having limitations is so good. It's so, you get crippled with like choice paralysis when you don't have it. When you run a big budget thing, we were talking about this with some colleagues the other day. If we have a huge budget on something, you kind of feel like you have to do things properly. Again, that word properly is not quite right, but like something a bit more like, rather than sort of run and gun approach, you have to do it a bit more like go to a mocap studio instead of just like me and my mates can do it in a Rococo suit. Like you just feel like you've got this big pot of money, so we just should do it like the studios do it. I do really enjoy the constraints of solo filmmaking. I think it keeps you in a lane, but if you ever have a thought of like, oh, I'm so limited what I can do, like you're not. You can tell such good stories. And with the software we have nowadays is crazy. That's what literally got me into this in the first place, was like, I have stories I want to tell. When I figured out 3D packages and like it's basically a whole film studio just in an app. You can just sit and click the mouse in the right place and hit the right keys in the right order, and you make a film. It's just crazy to be like, that's so cool that we don't need to logistically figure out cast and crew and be on set at the right time and check for light and all the sort of stuff that comes with live action. It's just time, patience, and a good idea, really, and you can kind of make anything.
100% agreed. And I was going to mention that, like you say, you know, rules and limitations, they are, and many people that we speak to, like, that's a good thing. Like, if you've got these constraints and you go, okay, I could have made 1,000 decisions, but I've got this location, this tool, you know, I'm going to stick within this because I've set those limitations, then it helps navigate it to get to the end goal, I guess, at times.
I think you just don't realize how often that's happening, even in the sort of films you're watching, where like, if you're shooting a sequence and you're trying to, you've got, like I said earlier, you've got you sort of, you know, the action that needs to happen, but you're trying to figure out what coverage you need. You could show the character like climbing over a fence and, you know, putting one hand on the fence, but lifting a leg over and climbing the other side and stepping down. Or you could show a mid shot of them touching the fence, and then the next shot, you just show the feet lying on the other side and walk away. One of them took me a week. One of them took me a day.
And you've told the story still.
If you watch any film with that lens and that eye, it's happening every film you're watching. It's like the choice they're making aren't just necessarily always for the most beautiful shot. It's efficiency. It's an efficient shot.
Yes.
Like that's such a clever way of suggesting something happened rather than always just showing everything and every action. Again, especially in animation, where like animation is like time. And so you're finding clever ways to not necessarily. That's why I'm saying these films are not a demonstration of my animation skill. They're just, I'm kind of always trying to avoid doing crazy, big, complicated animation. And it's just efficiency and being clever with those choices. And you save yourself like weeks, again, at no cost. If anything, I would say it's more interesting to watch because you're getting these, you're interpreting things rather than just being shown everything in full frame. I think it's actually one of the big downsides to our industry is people do feel like they can show anything now because we have these tools to render anything. If you look at like the first Jurassic Park, that opening sequence of like putting the raptor into the park and they've got the cage up, classic scene. You don't see anything. You don't see the raptor. You just have noises coming from inside. You have a rattle of the cage. The guy who gets eaten and pulled in, you don't really see anything. You just get pulled in, dragged in his hand, like that shot of like the hand slipping through his grasp. And you look at the new Jurassic Park and it's just, everything is full frame dinosaurs, every shot. And it's just like, remember Spielberg was doing that because he didn't have the capacity to do a full frame dinosaur in every shot. He's just like a solo filmmaker is that same feeling of like not being able to do everything. but it's such a better film because you have those limitations of like, you're just finding clever ways. You're forcing you to think of a clever way to show something rather than just showing it.
And look at those textures on the skin that we spent a year creating.
Yeah.
I mean, this film, Luke's Solstice, can you talk to us about winning the award and going over to Japan? Can you briefly summarize that experience?
Definitely. Yeah. So I had done festivals before with Alienated. I had the sort of, maybe a lot of people have this approach. I'm in my student film before that. You just sort of throw it at every single festival. And all you want is those little like leaves on your,
Oh yeah, the full frame
Totally.
full of
yeah. You get those laurels and you get when it starts to look like I'm making something people are recognizing and it's cool. This film, though, I definitely had much more of a selective approach to what I was going to submit to. I didn't just throw at everything. I basically cherry picked some festivals that I had in the past, tried to get into and hadn't managed to get into, but I loved and respected them as sort of what they were doing as a festival. I didn't get into most festivals. Another thing to know is like festivals are brutal. They humble you quickly with like you submit to everything, Sundance and Tribeca and Toronto and all these. You get rejected so much, but you just have to wait and try and find festival that you think your film would actually be a good fit for. You could do that by just looking at what the festival's sort of values are and looking at what films they tend to take in. And the other thing about like qualifying for the Oscars and BAFTAs, it's another whole world that I didn't really know about. I thought you could just maybe submit anything to the Oscars. Anyone could just submit to the Oscars, or anyone could submit to the BAFTAs. But the way that works is there are certain festivals that have been qualified by the Oscars and the BAFTAs, and you basically need to win at those festivals. And then when you do, then you can submit your film to them, saying which qualifying event did you win. So I submit to the one in Japan, was called Short Shorts Festival. One of the things I love about it is it's a celebration of specifically short film, not just film. Often if you go to festivals and you're a short film, you feel like you're on the sidelines. Everyone's there for the feature films. And so Short Shorts is just this massive celebration of short film. There's the spectacle of this event. It's incredible, all for the short films. And you just don't see that. It's really rare to find that at a short film festival. Anyway, I submitted to that, just loving what they're doing. First of all, got into it, which was just crazy. Like, didn't expect that. Then got an email to say, like, you're being strongly considered for, like, this was like weeks before the event. You're being strongly considered for the main award for Best Animated Film. Is there any way you can make it? And I was like, I don't know if they're just saying that to everyone, because, you want to have attendance. You want to have your filmmakers there on the day. So maybe they're just telling everyone, you're maybe in with a chance. You want to try and come if you can.
I'll just pop to Japan.
Yeah, exactly. So I basically said, no, I couldn't make it. Sorry, I was like a few weeks away. And then got a follow-up email that was like, hey, we've now got funding. We can fly you out and put you up. And everything changed. So I was like, okay, maybe they are serious about me maybe winning. And they still hadn't said I was going to win. They just said, really, you've got a good chance. I think they were just not allowed to say.
Yeah.
So me and my wife went over. We actually had our honeymoon in Japan, so it was like a special place for us already. So we were eager to go back. And yeah, went there. And then it's just the most incredible event. Like it's one of the most amazing festivals. The amount of stuff they do for the filmmakers, they sort of wine and dine you. Like they took us to a shrine for a good luck ceremony the day before the ceremony, and you went to this traditional Japanese ceremony. And then the awards themselves were incredible. And yeah, going honestly, even to that moment, I still was like, I'm not going to win. I'm just going to enjoy this experience. And but then you're winning that. It's just like I was living in this other world. Like what is going on? I'm in Tokyo on the stage, and it was an unforgettable experience. And then I went to like a after party with a Blue Power Ranger.
You went what with the Power Rangers?
I was going to see.
Hold on, I might have missed something. There was an after party with the Power Rangers.
We were all looking for something to do after. We were all on this high after the award ceremony because a few of us had won. So we're talking about let's go to karaoke. It's like, we're in Japan, let's do karaoke.
Oh yeah,
big on it.
Oh, massive.
One of the guys in the crowd put his hand up and was like, "I own a karaoke bar. Follow me." And so we all just followed him, and basically we found out he is like a celebrity in Japan, and he plays one of the Power Rangers over there. And then when we were doing karaoke, he put on like the Power Rangers song. I was singing.
Oh my! It was
just this. This was an amazing experience, but crazy.
That's worth going over to Japan just for that.
Just
let alone winning
karaoke with Power Rangers.
So have you put Solstice in to be nominated for an Oscar?
Yeah, so now it's officially accepted with the Oscars and BAFTAs. So the next step is, I think in December, I hear if I got shortlisted for Oscars. I have a very similar approach to I did with Go to Tokyo. I'm aware of the odds here, and so I'm just like, sure. And then BAFTA's shortlist is in January. And once I don't get into either of them, I'll post it online. Basically, that's my plan for the film. Is when I find out I didn't get into the Oscars and BAFTAs, I'll post it on YouTube and share it everywhere. But I obviously have to at least, if it's online, you're disqualified if it's public. So it's like,
Oh, okay.
for a lot of these things, you've got disqualification if it's publicly accessible. So I obviously have to at least give it a chance, and let's see where it goes.
Well, if I wanted to make an Oscar-worthy short film, Luke, what do I do? What do I do?
I think have a good idea. But again, I feel like that's just something that like you just have to have a good idea. It's hard. I've never been someone who can like come up with an idea now. Like, I just have a list of stuff I've written down that I think has got potential. I think everything we've touched on so far is like stay within your limits and know what your limits are and be clever with your filmmaking. Everything should be intentional. Every shot you're making is efficient. And yeah, have a message, have like something why you're making it, what you're trying to communicate here, something important that other people could connect to and relate to. That's big feedback I've had on this one. It's just the amount of people who have like connected with it in some way, relate to something personal they've gone through.
But I guess naturally people love doing it so much that it's like, I just want to do this because I love it.
Yeah,
and if
that's
it goes
definitely
that far,
true.
then that's, which I imagine, well, that is the case for you. You would never have thought of getting to enter this short into a freaking for the Oscars, you know?
Yeah, it's quite surreal that moment when you get there by that process, because you were just doing this. It's the difference between me on a stage in Tokyo and just in my flat on a laptop or a computer, just doing something that no one's asked for. It's just like, that's so strange to be like, oh wow, I just made something that didn't exist. Just again, that it's very strange. And then just be recognized in any way and it connect with people and people made people feel things. It's just the most basics of filmmaking, but it's cool. It's still cool to me that.
Like you say, no one's asked for this, but I'm making this thing and it's been recognized to that level. It's incredible. That.
Yeah. I think you just have to have that belief in it as well. Like, you know, what you're making is worth it and it's going to be, someone will could connect with it. Or I think that's definitely what's driving my next film. It's like, I just feel like I've had another idea I've just had it for ages and I've never seen this done before.
Is that Redivider?
Yeah, Redivider. Just a cool idea. I feel like you always know you're touching on something when it feels like a natural idea, not too contrived or forced, but you've never seen it before. Like, I'm just like, why has that not been done? That sort of feeling. I always have this feeling like I want to quickly make it because I feel like somebody else is going to make it. Like it feels like natural, so someone's going to take this idea. I don't know why no one's taken it yet.
So you say you've already started it because we've seen the poster. You put a poster out for Redivider. What's it like to start a new project after the journey of something like Solstice? Because I imagine it's up here and then it's like, when do you start? Do you have a break?
With Solstice, I stumbled into it where I almost jokingly was like, I'm never doing that again. But like, I finished
fucking doing another one again.
Yeah. I finished Alienated and I was like I said, it's just like a hobby. So I'm just opening Maya and be like, I want to do something. So I just started blocking together shapes to make that character. Like, I didn't make that big psychological leap to like, I'm about to start a new film. I just tricked myself almost into like started modeling something from it, which might one day be used. And then I just kept going. And I think Redivider is another one where I was like, I've kind of just started. It's just like, I have that itch of just like, what am I going to do with spare time now, if not this? So I'm like, where I'm in Maya or wherever I'm, just start kind of naively at first. Like, I'll just start blocking out some shots or block out a character model or something. And then, yeah, before you know it, you're like, well, maybe I can just start texturing and then maybe I could just, and then then you're fully in it. And then once I'm in, I'm just like, yeah, I'm there. I think it's so important to have, if you told me at the start of Solstice will take you 4 years of your spare time, I would be like, oh my, I can't be bothered. You always have to feel like you're almost done and you're just got to do that and then you're done. And I've had that every time I've made a film. It's like that naivety of I can be done this will only be a 5-minute film. This I could start out as like an idea. I think I can tell a story in 3 or 4 minutes, and there's 5 minutes, there's 8 minutes, and as you're adding the complexity to it, it just always grows. But yeah, I think you have to be a little bit naive, to not too naive that you're biting off more than you can chew and you don't realize how you're never going to finish this, but you just need a little bit of like delusion that like, I'm almost done, it's just over the horizon, and you just keep going. And yeah.
Briefly talking about Redivider, your next project, you've mentioned that you're going to focus on like, you know, streamlining the process.
I think so.
Is that because of, you know, the story and you want to do something different, or is that just thinking from what I've learned from previous shorts, I want this one to be streamlined and I'm going to do it this way? Or is
it was just like I actually don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but there will always be this focus, I think, for this film to like just try and make it a bit quicker so that it's not taking me so long to get another film out. And just, again, don't know the answer on how I'm going to do it, but it will be a drive. Whether it's something like Unreal is a potential there, or is something like just staying within a pipeline that I am familiar with, which might also have its efficiencies, and not trying to learn a whole first system or something like that, and just being like, oh, from start to finish, I think I can make this whole film. We'll see if that's true, but I say this now, it's so early, and I bet it's 5 years from now, and it's a 20-minute film.
I'll just start with a 2-minute short.
Yeah, that's the delusion. That's what I've got now. It's good. That's a good thing.
That's the start of the ideas in the process, isn't it?
Because I don't feel too overwhelmed. I think in my head, it's a 3 or 4 minute short. I can do it with everything I know. So I'll start making it. And if I had to learn 5 different softwares and it was going to be a 20-minute film, I wouldn't have the energy to start it. So right now I've got that healthy delusion.
Brilliant stuff. Luke, I mean, for an outro, where can people find, or when can people find Solstice? I know that it depends on whether it gets into
exactly.
Oscars, of course, so maybe there's no answer for that just yet. And where can people follow you? Where can people find you? All that stuff.
So I think there is quite a confident answer that you can expect to see Solstice in early January when it doesn't get into the BAFTAs.
I hope we don't. I hope we can't see it in January.
Cool. January is the BAFTAs deadline. If you see it online, then you know. No, I'll push it everywhere. It'll probably be early January at some time. I'll post it on my YouTube channel, which is Luke Angus Animator. Same handle for my Instagram, Luke Angus Animator. That's kind of just where I post all my everything, updates on what I'm doing or I'm working on. And it's where Solstice will be promoted when it's online.
Amazing, man. That's so exciting. Well, Luke, I just want to say a massive thanks. I mean, I've covered a lot there, and it's, really insightful. So I really appreciate your time and to hang out with us and talk about Solstice and your process.
Thanks so much. This is a privilege. I love what you're doing on this pod. It's so good. So insight into like indie artists is so good. It's the untapped world.
Amazing.
I've loved working through your stuff. Still getting through it, and I'm really loving it. It's my number one played right now.
That means so much, Luke. It really does, man. Thank you.
All right, gents, I better get back to work.
Okay. Thanks, man.
Thank you. Cheers, guys. Bye bye.